Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, Sephiroth is coming to Smash. Finally, a guy with a sword. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including Sephiroth coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And then on Thursday, we're going to be talking about today's Indie World Showcase, Tuesday's Indie World Showcase. But in the meantime, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I don't know about you, Patrick, but this holiday season, my husband and I have gone kind of full in on holiday TV and holiday themed movies. It just feels appropriate. And it's kind of fun to just release yourself to the holiday movies.
I was on the phone with my father last night, and I was mentioning things that we'd been watching, and he said, when do you watch all these things? And I was like, what, when I'm not going out to dinner, when I'm not going out to see a show, when I'm not going out to meet my friends? What are you talking about? When do I watch these things?
Yeah. I feel like even more than before, we just consume so much content. We are insatiable content monsters because what else are you going to do?
Oh, and honestly, being the insatiable content monster is preferable to the alternative, which is being an insatiable phone monster where I'm just scrolling through Twitter all day.
Yeah.
That's the good form of me at this point in my life. Mark, what have you been watching Christmas movie wise?
Okay, so yesterday, we just watched The Santa Claus, the one with Tim Allen, and moved directly into The Santa Claus 2.
Claus 2.
And
very good.
We haven't watched the third one.
The Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I have Elizabeth
Julie
Mitchell
Bowen
from
in that?
What?
Oh, Elizabeth Mitchell.
Elizabeth Mitchell.
Okay.
Yeah, from Lost and other things that aren't Lost.
If you say so, man.
I have a lot of thoughts on the Santa Claus movies, but this is neither the time nor the place for us to get into it.
Oh. I thought we were going to get at least one thought. Are you not going to move on to the Santa Claus 3 with Martin Short as Jack Frost?
Maybe controversial. Don't really like Martin Short.
Oh, you know what? That may be controversial. In fact, I know it is. I am right there with you. I don't, there was maybe last year there was a Steve Martin Short comedy duo thing that they put out on Netflix, and either Sarah and I together or just me watched half of it and then had to stop because I couldn't stand Martin Short.
When he shows up and you know what? No, not important. We got to move on.
In Arrested Development or in
Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah, it's just no, this is too
Patrick,
crazy.
We've got to move on. We have to move past it. This is what he wants us to do.
I know it. He's got us fighting amongst ourselves. Speaking of fighting amongst yourselves, my copy of Sonic Forces or my copy of Untitled Goose Game, would you like to borrow it? You can by joining the Sonic Forces borrowing program. All you have to do is write in to Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com and give us a mailing address, and I will send you my copy of Sonic Forces. Maybe Untitled Goose Game is in there instead of Sonic Forces. The goose is a spoiler. It's what he does. You just got to get on this list. You got to borrow these games. It is the right thing to do. It's the responsible thing to do. Get on the list.
It remains the perfect program. Do you know what? You can even do this. Put your loved one on the list for Christmas.
Yes. Right. There's no way they'll get the game before Christmas. Just heads up.
Yeah. Maybe next
year. There's a list. It's a queue. We did, on the topic of Sonic Forces, get an email from Bernard. Bernard writes, "Hello, not sure if you heard of this news story of a kid spending $16,000 in in-app purchases in Sonic Forces." Not saying they would have saved money by it being on the Sonic Forces borrowing program, but not saying they would have not saved money by being in it. Thanks for the podcast. Have a good one. Bernard, great point. If you do get your hands on my copy of Sonic Forces or anyone else's copy of Sonic Forces, heads up. I guess you can spend $16,000 on cosmetic items in that game. Don't do that.
Yeah, and Bernard, you are 100% right. People would have saved money because, in all ways, the Sonic Forces borrowing program is the perfect program, and this just continues to prove it.
Also, maybe just a quick disclaimer that we should have been saying for like 3 years. We are not responsible for any in-app purchases you decide to make.
That's right.
With my borrowed copy of
We're
Sonic
saying
Forces.
it now. It is true forever in the past.
Retroactively,
and forever
yes.
in the future.
And at this specific moment in time.
Oh,
so
yeah.
in
Close
perpetuity
yes.
throughout the universe.
Close
yes.
all the loopholes.
And in the multiverse too. Let's just say all the time. Speaking of things that we are not going to be able to predict, we are doing an episode where we are predicting the entirety of Nintendo's 2021. And we need your predictions, and we need those by this Friday, December 18th. And you just need to email those to Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. What kind of predictions are we looking for here, Mark?
It can be a prediction of any kind as long as it involves Nintendo and the year 2021. And I know that you might be thinking to yourself, do these need to be realistic predictions? What does that even mean? Who could have possibly predicted what 2020 is? Like your Mario memories, these can come in any form. If you are in like a bell choir for the holidays and you have gotten your bell choir to, like, in Morse code, use bells to spell out your 2021 prediction in Morse code, that is an acceptable form if you want to send it in.
Just so long as you are either socially distanced within your bell choir or that you've been bubbling together all year in anticipation of the Christmas season.
Or your bell choir is your household.
Yes, that would also be fine. We want those. We have an insatiable desire for more predictions. You are running. Normally, we give you a ton of time on these sorts of things. This is just a couple days now. Get them in so we can talk about them. And then a quick programming note. Going into the end of the year here, we are going to switch over to one episode a week. This week is maybe a little bit of an anomaly here, but the news has been slowing down on the Nintendo front, as it usually does towards the end of the year. So we're going to stop doing the news episodes for a little bit here, just for 2 weeks. So next week on the 21st, Tuesday, is it the 21st? I wrote 21st, but now I'm second guessing that.
And it's the 22nd.
22nd. Tuesday the 22nd, we are going to be talking about the original 1990s Mortal Kombat movie with our good friend Colin J. Morris. And then the next week on the 29th, we are going to be predicting Nintendo's 2021. So again, make sure you get your predictions in by this Friday so we can talk about them on the show. All right, Mark, is there anything else? I feel like there was a lot of business up front there.
We should move on before we start unloading on Martin Short anymore.
No. All right, let's get into what we've been playing. Mark, I'm talking about Hades again. I'm happy to report that I have gotten to what is like actually the end of Hades. Not in that I'm going to stop playing it, but in that I have seen the end of the main storyline. I have gotten to the credits. I have changed a big aspect of Hades and Zagreus' relationship, and I continue to play it. But the narrative end of this game was satisfying in a way that I was not expecting.
Wow.
I just sort of put the controller down and sat and watched the credits and the little like action that played out under the credits. Just go and like let the whole thing wash over me. A totally satisfying experience. I've had so many like good, hour-long chunks with the game because every time you do a run of the game, trying to get to Hades and defeat him. At the longest, it's like 45, 50 minutes, and on like the shorter end, it's like low 20 minutes, right? And so I've had a ton of good like discrete chunks of time with it. But it's really only in getting to Hades or beating Hades for the 10th time that I felt all of it sort of connect as a great mosaic of a game that I've been playing for the last 2 months. I just absolutely love Hades. The more I play it, the less I think there's anything wrong with it. Like it is totally my game of the year, even though I've put way more time into Animal Crossing, even though I did everything there is to do in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, even though The Last of Us 2 made me cry. Hades is just I don't know. I know there's no such thing as a perfect game, but I am absolutely in love with Hades.
That's awesome. When you say that you want to go back to it, is it because there's like a post game in the way that we think of post games, or is it just like you like being in the game and like playing the game, and so you want to put more time into it?
There is more to accomplish in that there are more like upgrades that I can make to like more aesthetic upgrades that I can make to the House of Hades. Like there are all these there's a house contractor who's like a ghost who lives down there. And he can, add rugs or, put up pillars or I've bought all the extra things I can put in Zagreus's room. But there are all sorts of other things that you can change. Um, there are fish that I haven't caught yet. Um, there are relationships that I haven't maxed out yet. There are and weapons I haven't maxed out yet. Weapons I haven't even uncovered their all the weapons have three different forms. And the fourth form is like a hidden one that you have to spend a little time upgrading the weapon and do some like special like story based things where like you have the weapon equipped when you talk to someone and then like do something for them. I haven't reunited Patroclus and Achilles. I have reunited uh, Eurydice and Orpheus. I felt really good about that one. But yeah, there's just more stuff to do and more relationships to max out, and I just love it. I'm never gonna stop. I don't think.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool. I've been playing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, still making my way through it slowly. I have to tell you, I'm a little bit worried that am I going to make my way through the entire game? I don't know. Because I definitely get like a little bit fatigued where it's like
Yeah,
every mission that you do feels so similar. That it's hard for me to be like, I want to see what happens next because I'm like, I kind of feel like I know what's going to happen next. And I know that that's not entirely fair because I'm still fairly early into the game. And again, like the snippets of spoilers that I see online, I'm like, oh, this game feels like it gets a little bit bonkers in ways that I haven't experienced yet. But it's hard when I don't know how far you've made it if but like the more you go, the more that opens up on the map, like just more icons on the map.
yeah, more
And it
stuff.
feels a little bit overwhelming because it feels like I'm not really making it forward progress in the game because it just seems like I don't know, it's a weird sense of like one, everything is feeling just like a little bit the same, like all the combat encounters are a little bit the same. And then two, you're like there is so much to this game and it all seems to be the same thing.
Yeah, I've started instead of selecting the challenges and the chapters in the story through the map, just doing like you can toggle over with LNR
Yeah.
to just get you a list of them. And I've started just selecting
Oh.
them that way.
Can you
Um,
filter that list?
I mean, you can sort of filter it. So what it does is, it's like I guess on that list, I don't know if there's a way to do like where you have to give like 8 fish and like
Yeah.
30 orders or whatever. Like I don't think those are on the lists. It's all like the combat encounters,
Oh,
and
got
they're
it, got it.
organized by like recommended level.
Yeah.
And then the like main chapter fights are in a separate list. And then the services are in another list, so you can check out all of the merchants that you've unlocked. But I also find that sort of annoying, where like you have to know which merchant to go to buy the thing, and like the game has a feature where you can tag a specific task so that like you'll get a little green dot on the places that will give you the resource needed to complete that
Yeah, it's like
task.
the Sheikah
um
sensor.
it's like the Sheikah sensor, but like there's just so much of it that it almost feels irrelevant. Like I just kind of want to farm resources for a while and then go back and knock them all out. Or I just wanted to do itself and be like, hey, you have enough to do
Yeah,
this now,
yeah.
so go do it.
No,
You know?
occasionally there are fights where I'm like, oh, that was really fun or really unexpected. And usually it's when like a new enemy type or like a new
Mhm.
character that you're encountering. They're not always enemies. And like that's really fun. And I have to say, like, surprisingly, I'm like pretty into the story. I think, at least so far, that it's the most interesting Zelda as a character has been ever, or at least in a really long time.
Yeah,
Um,
that tracks.
and so like those pieces of it I like, and those are like the story and everything was the part that I was excited about when the game came out, just like being in that world. So I'm still enjoying it, but I can just like tell that some of the things that were like in the
Yeah.
beginning I was like, oh, this is like a little bit annoying, but I'm still enjoying it. Now I can feel it getting to like wear on me a little bit more the further I get into the game.
I still maintain that like it makes me laugh every time you go back to that tower after finishing a combat thing
Mm-hmm.
and that big sweeping string score. That
Well,
it's
even when you're
not.
just you
It's
go back
always so dramatic.
you go back to the tower and you're on the map. You're looking at the map.
Yeah.
And that loop, it's like 30 seconds just plays over and over and over, just like relentlessly.
Yes, it's too much. Um. So yeah, I maintain that Age of Calamity is a game that I will probably get through at some point. But an hour at a time.
Yeah.
You know. So it could be months before I get to the end of it. Speaking of things that I'll never get to the end of, Animal Crossing. There's snow on the ground in Animal Crossing. Um, we can make snowmen. It's adorable. The music all has jingle bells behind it. I don't have anything new to say about Animal Crossing other than it continues to be adorable. And Mark, we are almost to the point where we have all great neighbors, where
Whoa.
all of the animals on the island are great, with the exception of one. There's one that we're like okay on. We For a little while, we had like 7 that were great and 3 that we were okay on. We'd gotten rid of all the ones that we disliked, right? And slowly but surely, we're getting rid of the ones that we're only okay on, and hopefully, we can replace this last only okay one with a good one.
Are you retaining, like, once you get a neighbor that you like, are you retaining them or do you let them go if they want to leave?
No, now I mean we've gotten to the place where we've locked in. Like I don't know if I can play the game without having Sherb on my island anymore, or Cookie or Fauna. Like they're just part of the game. If there's some point where they decide to like patch it in so that an animal can just decide to leave and not ask your permission, I'll stop playing. No, honest to God, Sarah and I will talk about Cookie, the pink dog who wants to be a pop star, every day. We will talk about her every day.
You guys have had Cookie for a good long while too, right?
Yeah, Cookie, I think was my fourth, my fourth neighbor. She wasn't one of my starters, and then Ozzy came third. I think Cookie was my third.
You always remember your fourth.
All right, Mark. Those are the new. That's what we have been playing. I got so excited about new releases. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Today, Tuesday, December 15th, Collection of Saga Final Fantasy Legend is released for the Nintendo Switch. This is a collection of the first 3 Final Fantasy Legend games, or at least that's how they're known in the States. In Japan, they're part of like the Saga series. But when they were brought over to the US, people were like, Final Fantasy, I think, had just launched or shortly launched when the first Final Fantasy Legend game was released. So Square Enix was like, let's just kind of like get everybody in America on board this Final Fantasy train.
Yeah, I mean they're backed into a corner with the name of this thing, but Collection of Saga Final Fantasy Legend is a disaster of a name.
It's they're 3 Game Boy games.
Yes.
And Patrick,
the first of which I played extensively.
That's what I was gonna say. I think you talked about it in our Weird Games episode with Greg Smith.
Yes, that's right. Because you climb a tower and kill God is why we talked about that as a weird game. Yeah, this is the collect. I want to talk a little bit about the collection itself because I think it is a bad collection. It's 3 Game Boy games. They're charging $20 for it. And it seems like it is obviously designed for mobile. Just because of the way the games are all set in a like a frame that looks like it would be a very obvious place to have a D-pad on the left and buttons on the right. So I'd expect to see this thing in mobile at some point. You don't need to pay $20 for 3 Game Boy games. It's not a good deal. And I don't think like I've played little bits of Final Fantasy Legends 2 and 3, and neither of them are as fun as the first. And the first one is like a weird archaic slog that I don't think works at all in 2020. Let alone works very well. It's weird that the original Saga Frontier, also recently got this like the announcement of it being remastered and coming to Switch and PlayStation. Just PlayStation 4, not PlayStation 5. And then also that this thing is coming out. It's like, why is Square Enix doubling down on the Saga games?
I was reading an old Jeremy Parish article that was either on US Gamer or Retronauts about Final Fantasy Legend / like Saga, and I forget the name of like the producer or director of these games, but basically what Jeremy Parish was saying, or what he was speculating, is that like this guy who created this series is now like a executive in like management at Square Enix, and he's not in game creation, but like he just occasionally cashes in his chips and is like, and now we're going to do this with Saga because he has the political willpower to like get this stuff pushed through. And so yeah, it is kind of interesting. I agree with you that like maybe not the best use of $20. It does have some quality of life improvements, like similar to like the Fire Emblem release just last week or 2 weeks ago. Basically, I think you can speed up battles, like do that sort of thing. All of that is available in the game now.
Yeah, I've got the game description from Nintendo's website here. Game includes new enhancements like high speed mode, as well as features unique to the Switch. Screen magnification, game screen background customization. I mean, it's saying it includes new enhancements like high speed mode. I don't know. It doesn't actually sound like there are a lot of extra enhancements in this. I would say if you're remotely interested, read up on it. I would bet that it's more bare bones than we're expecting.
But that's pretty much, I would say, the biggest release of the week. Just a quick shout out that as part of the Game Awards, Nintendo started running some eShop deals here in the US, where I think fairly similar to the deals around like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Here's one thing that I thought was interesting is that Fire Emblem Three Houses is down from $60. It's now $41.99. Same with Super Mario Odyssey and Astral Chain. But The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is $39.99. What do you think warrants the $2 difference between the two? How is that decided? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's just the difference between 30% off and 33% off, right? Because that $39.99 is like an artificial, it's not a percentage, it's not like a reasonable percentage, it's just like a third of the price is missing, right?
Right. But
whereas the other ones could be just like a hard and fast, like 30% off.
But why make the
I don't know. Why make it different?
Yeah.
No idea.
We'll never know.
But Zelda, Mario Odyssey, and Fire Emblem Three Houses, those are all huge, meaty games that it's pretty good to get for to not have to spend $60 on. Also, it is worth pointing out that there is going to be a Nintendo Indie World Showcase today, and Nintendo loves saying, and the game is available now,
that's true.
or it's available on Thursday. So I would expect our current list of new releases to be incomplete. And so we will talk more about that on Thursday. All right, let's close this out. Now it is time for a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, we are good, loyal corporate stooges, so we are very excited about the announcements coming out of Disney from their investor call. And we thought it would be fun to talk about Marvel and Disney announcements that got us all excited. Was it Marvel and Star Wars? Those are the two things we're talking about. Um, uh, what what's your like overhead broad view opinion of
It's
this?
too much for my
Yes.
feeble non-corporate brain to handle. It is. Do you remember that there was a time that like we were lucky to get 1 or 2 Star Wars projects every like 3 years? It's all so
Yes.
much.
Yes. Or when it was like 1984 and it was like, yeah, now we're not going to do Star Wars again for another 15 years. Yeah, do you want to start with Star Wars stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like again okay, the big announcement for me, because again, it feels like there's so much going on. But the big announcement for
Yes.
me is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm very excited for this to be happening. I'm excited to have Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan. I don't know what to make of the fact that Hayden Christensen is coming back to play Darth Vader, the man whose face we never see and whose voice is dubbed in this series. It'll be wild.
It will be wild. Do you think there's like any chance that we'll see him as like that they have like the same sort of force projection abilities as like Luke shows in episode 8, or like the sort of force connection that Rey and Kylo Ren have in episodes 8 and 9, so that they can just like have their physical beings in the same space? Because there's no way that Darth Vader can know where Obi-Wan Kenobi is, right?
Right. Well, and also I'm so hung up on the fact that they like made a point to say that he's portraying Darth Vader, which like makes sense.
Yeah, weird.
But at the same time, like doesn't make any sense to me.
Right, because he technically portrays Darth Vader in Revenge of the Sith as well, but you know, what are you gonna do? So I thought it was interesting that they showed the sizzle reel for the season 2 trailer of Mandalorian. Didn't talk about a season 3, but instead we're doing 2 spin-off shows. One is the Rangers of the New Republic, and just an Ahsoka Tano show called Ahsoka. Which, Mark, let me tell you, one of the complaints that I have had about The Mandalorian this year is that I love that they're bringing in all of these disparate elements from other Star Wars stuff, but I wish they would just make a show about that other Star Wars stuff that they're obviously carrying a torch for. And clearly that's what the Ahsoka Tano show is.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for the sort of like focusing this.
Weird to be getting like a live action Thrawn at some point. That seems inevitable.
Yeah.
I feel like we should. Anything else you want to say about Star Wars? I feel like we should probably move on to Marvel.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because there's a ton of Marvel. The first of all, I think it's nuts that WandaVision is coming out in January 15th, and then when it's done, basically Falcon and the Winter Soldier starts up, and then probably Loki, and then probably What If, and then Hawkeye, and then Miss Marvel, and maybe some of that's out of order, but it's like we're gonna have a week or two between them. Maybe it's just gonna be the next week the next one starts. There's so much of this. What of these are exciting to you?
I'm excited for Loki. Actually, I'm excited for WandaVision. But like Captain, like Winter Soldier and Falcon or whatever it's called, like I feel like I don't really feel anything for. I'm not excited. I'm not excited. But Loki, I'm super excited for. I love that like I think at one point he's DB Cooper, so I kind of like that this is like potentially like Quantum Leap, but with like bad guys over, like famous thieves versus people who that Scott Bakula learns a valuable lesson or something.
I mean, there's also a point where we see like Black Widow sitting on a on like a rock or something. So like, is he in the afterlife? Like, what's cut off? There's a lot to be excited about in Loki, and just kind of all of them. I'm excited for all of it. We were accompanied today by pianist Kyle Shaw. All right, Mark, let's get into the news.
Last week during the Game Awards, Nintendo revealed the next fighter coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and it's Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII.
Sephiroth! Yeah, this is crazy. Mark, You lay more of the groundwork, and then we'll get into it.
I mean, it is crazy. The reveal
Yeah.
video, which I will probably talk about a little bit more, is insanely epic. This is the second character from Final Fantasy VII after Cloud, and breaks the pattern. I guess not really a rule, but I think was treating it as a rule that we would only have one character per game from a third-party franchise. So this was definitely mixing things up.
I mean, if you don't want to count the Belmonts,
Which clearly I don't.
Yep. Well, what are they called? Reflection, mirror. What are the clone
Echoes.
characters called?
Echo fighters.
Echoes. That's right. Thank you. I was not gonna get there. So the thing that I think is amazing about that, you're right. Like it's sort of a good rule, or like a rule of thumb, or an assumption. But it's not even just that it's from the same series. This is the same game. Like Final Fantasy has 15 mainline entries plus, a second Final Fantasy X, 2 extra Final Fantasy 13s. It is wild that they picked another Final Fantasy VII character. Mark, what does it mean?
I guess, what I would initially say is that Sakurai is like a big Final Fantasy VII fan, but to hear him tell it, Sakurai is not even the one who is picking these. So I don't know. I can't possibly imagine how this happened.
Yeah. The thing that I find the most exciting about this, and the next bullet point on our news sheet here, is that there will be a full presentation for the character on Thursday at 2 p.m. That's Thursday the 17th. So we will not have an opportunity to talk about it on this show before the end of the year. So go and check those out. Those videos are always fun. It's 45 minutes of Sakurai playing Smash Brothers against himself in his own home, which is a delight. And he'll tell us all about Sephiroth. And there will be new Mii Fighter costumes, because there always are. There'll be a new stage, because there always is. And there will be new music, because there always is. But that's the part that has me the most excited, because while Cloud is in the base version of this game, Final Fantasy VII is not Final Fantasy in general is not well represented. There is one piece of music and one stage, and that's it. So, I mean, this is the opportunity to really bring in more Final Fantasy VII stuff. What the stage is going to be? Is it going to be like the inside of the crater? Is it going to be not related to Sephiroth, but just related to Final Fantasy? Maybe. What are the Mii fighters going to look like? Will there be more than one stage? How much music are we going to get? I would be willing to bet that we're going to see music. And it's tough because I wanted to say music from all across Final Fantasy. But the like final title card that popped up at the end of the trailer said Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Cross Final Fantasy VII specifically. But there's so much in Final Fantasy VII that could really flesh out the game. It seems like almost a make good for not having Cloud represent the game more completely.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that is the case. I think it would be really fun. Who knows if like the reason why like the Final Fantasy representation or Final Fantasy VII representation from before was so limited was because of like restrictions that Square Enix put on it. And like, does that still hold true? But
I mean, the thing that's so the like, I just to push back against that for a second is like, there's a ton of Dragon Quest stuff with the inclusion of the hero from Dragon Quest.
That's true. That's
11
true.
and others. So it's like Square Enix is obviously playing ball now, and I wonder if just during the regular development they were like, nah, you get Cloud, you get Midgar, and like that's enough for you. And now that they're like back in negotiations about it, they're like, oh yeah, no, inject it with proper Final Fantasy VII stuff.
What I'm looking forward to from Sakurai's presentation on Thursday is like the little bit of insight that we get at the very beginning, where he talks about like, you're surprised by this character, aren't you? Well, let me like tell you a little bit about like what happened. Because I am
also, yeah, you also get a look inside his house.
Yeah,
too, is very nice.
It's like a model home. I don't get it.
It is. It's beautiful.
Okay, so the one part I want to talk about from the reveal video is when they revealed the inclusion of Castlevania in Smash Ultimate. It started with a video with like Death murdering Luigi, and like we literally see Luigi's
reaping his soul. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And in this video, they play with the idea that like they are going to kill Mario because there's a moment I haven't seen it because I haven't watched the movie, played a game. What is Advent Children? But I guess there's like a moment.
It's a movie. It's a
Yeah.
movie.
There's like an iconic moment in Advent Children where Sephiroth like skewers somebody with his sword, and they send that up here with Mario. It looks like possibly he had murdered Mario. Turns out that it is not the case. But I love that since the ground has been laid by killing Luigi canonically, that it is possible that anybody could go. Mario is at risk.
Now, Mark, I don't. I think Mario is murdered in the reveal trailer for Ridley. It starts with Mario, Samus, and Mega Man like walking on like a technology sort of bridge, and it's dark. And there's like a swoop, and Mega Man like disappears with a blue blue blue, like Mega Man dying. And then like another swoop, and then like Mario's gone, and then Samus and Ridley fight. But so I think Mario has been killed in one of these trailers already.
Well, there you go. Mario is dead. On the day of the Game Awards, but not related to like they didn't time it around the Game Awards as far as I can tell. Nintendo announced that the next amiibo in the Smash Brothers series, which was previously announced, it's Banjo and Kazooie, Terry, and Byleth. They are all going to be releasing on March 26th, 2021, which is a lot sooner than was originally revealed. When they were shown off for the first time, Nintendo announced that they were going to be released in fall 2021, which at the time we remarked seemed crazy because it was so far away.
Yeah, so maybe they just course corrected for that, or realized that they had then like after that another 6 amiibo to put out. And we're like, oh my god, we just need to get these things out the door.
Yeah. So, but March 26th, 2021.
And maybe no surprise, but surprise, that was the only announcement that we got from Nintendo during the Game Awards, was just Sephiroth is coming to Smash, and that you'll know more about it next week. I know that there's always a sense of the sky is the limit, and who knows what's going to be announced at Game Awards, but the answer is not that much.
Yeah, and that was kind of true for like not just Nintendo. I felt in general it was a quieter Game Awards than we've had in the past. Which makes sense, like Sony and Microsoft literally just released new consoles like 3 weeks ago.
Totally.
So, but we did actually get a surprising amount of Capcom stuff for Switch. So Capcom showed off a new Ghosts and Goblins game called Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection that's being released February 25th, 2021.
This is unbelievable. Why would they do this?
Who likes Ghosts and Goblins?
I don't know. I have no idea. It has like that weird retro appeal where we're like, oh yeah, I remember this game, and you play it, for like the 3 minutes until the game like kills you, and you have to go back to the beginning, and you're like, oh, I'm never gonna get anywhere in this game.
Yeah.
And then you stop playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be interested to learn more about it, but right now I'm of the like, huh, opinion on this one.
Totally. I'm proposing a new subtitle: Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection: Who is this for? Capcom also announced Capcom Arcade Stadium, which is a digital collection of 32 arcade games, or has the potential to be a digital collection of 32 arcade games. Basically,
this is a cool idea.
You download this thing that is your portal to the Capcom Arcade Stadium. When it's released in February, you will get the World War II shooter 1943: The Battle of Midway included for free as a free download. And then there are 3 other game packs which come with 10 games each that you can buy separately. And then in addition to that, you can also just buy Ghosts and Goblins on its own for a total of 32
original
games.
Arcade Ghosts and Goblins.
Yes. Yeah, these are all arcade games.
And they're a little bit on the like older side, arcade game wise. Like there aren't, and none of them are licensed games, so you're not going to see, some of the. I talked about the Predator versus Alien, Alien Predator. There we go. Like beat 'em up, the side-scrolling Capcom game on a previous episode. That's not going to be in this collection. X-Men isn't going to be in this collection. Street Fighter. Some of like the Street Fighter 2 games are in here. There aren't any Street Fighter 3s. So like there are glaring omissions in this collection right now. But like the concept of like here's a portal to Capcom arcade games that you can buy in bundles or individually is very appealing to me.
Yeah, I think it's a fun idea. I think it's a cool way to kind of like have your own Capcom Classic Edition, but just like
Yeah, totally.
easily accessible for everybody. Because the trailer for it, such as it is kind of interesting. Like, it's not really showing off gameplay. It is mostly just like a 30 or so second, attract screen that kind of how like the NES Classic Edition and the SNES Classic Edition have their like main menu with a catchy tune. That's kind of all this trailer was. It was interesting. It's like they know who their audience is and they're just like speaking directly to them.
And a couple of the games that appear in here are in the Capcom beat 'em up bundle, like Final Fight, like Captain Commando, like is it called like Armor War something. There's some like kind of mech combat brawler. But so if you are specifically interested in those kinds of games, you're probably better served by the Capcom beat 'em up bundle. But it's cool that they're going to be included here too.
Finally, Capcom also showed off a new trailer for Monster Hunter Rise, which is coming in March, and the announcement of a demo for the game, which will be available in January for a limited time.
There we go. Mark, a demo.
Perfect. Probably the like amount of that game I'm going to play. As far as the awards themselves, Animal Crossing New Horizons brought home the award for Best Family Game. Hades won for Best Indie Game and Best Action Game. And like Mortal Kombat 11 got the Best Fighting Game award. That's pretty much it for games that were on Nintendo platforms. The Last of Us Part 2 won Game of the Year, and I don't really know any of the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Hades is robbed here. I get why The Last of Us wins. It is it is a unique like media experience, and a fun, beautiful, terrifying game. But remember, I said Hades is almost perfect. So I mean, how does that not win Game of the Year?
Also, like we previously mentioned, yesterday an Indie World Showcase was announced for this morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Possibly by the time you're listening to this, it will have already happened, and we'll be talking all about it on Thursday's episode.
We're gonna break it way down, sort of in preparation for. We didn't know what we were gonna talk about on Thursday. We were sort of. This happens at the end of every year. We start running out of ideas, but we come back fresh in January. Don't you worry. I was like making a list of games that we know are coming at some point, including some games that are listed to be coming out sometime this year, but we don't know yet. So I've got a good list of games that we might expect to see then, and I can only imagine that we're going to be talking about, hey, why haven't we learned anything more about this game since it was originally announced on Thursday's episode? So I think it'll be a good deep dive, but also like check out the Indie World Showcase itself. They're usually fun and totally unpredictable.
Last week, I think it was, we discussed Kratos being a playable character in Fortnite, and the novelty of the fact that you can play as Kratos on a Nintendo platform. Patrick at the time mentioned that there were rumors of Master Chief from Halo arriving soon, and that turned out to be true. Master Chief is now available in Fortnite, which raises the question, will they be able to complete the trifecta? Is it actually realistic that a Nintendo character could be next?
Yeah, so what do you think? Do you think it is realistic? I still feel like no. Kirby, obviously.
Yeah, it does. No, it doesn't feel entirely realistic to me. When they announced that Master Chief was available, they also announced that like a couple of characters from The Walking Dead are going to be showing up, and so that kind of feels more like the Fortnite wheelhouse. It seems a little strange that they would be like, and here's like Inklings.
Yeah, well, as part of Jason's 2021 prediction email, he included this paragraph that I'd like to read to you. He says, "I think Link could be added to Fortnite. He has some long range and melee weapons, meaning you don't have to add anything crazy to him. He's a bit more mature than Mario and has been in T games like your favorite Link's crossbow training. T games meaning like teen rated games. like our beloved Link's crossbow training, which is true.
And don't forget Soul Calibur 2.
Don't forget Soul Calibur.
But if we're going Soul Calibur 2, like Spawn should show up at some point as well.
I mean, is your game really finished before you have Spawn in there? The answer is no.
Nope. That's why games as a service exist. So that way Spawn can eventually show up in your game.
This is also why people are so mad about Cyberpunk 2077. Doesn't have Spawn in it.
Furious.
4 out of 10 doesn't have Spawn.
Speaking of gaming collaborations, but not speaking of Spawn, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony announced yesterday in a coordinated press release that they are pursuing shared guidelines for online gaming safety, focusing specifically on 3 areas. And I say specifically, but they offer like no specifics on what they're doing. But the 3 areas they intend to focus on are prevention, partnership, and responsibility. Prevention meaning like giving people control of their data ahead of time, letting them know, like the controls that they have available to them. Partnership, working in collaboration as a industry, and responsibility, making sure that it is easy for people to report abuses and then taking action on those abuses where appropriate. So
just a quick note on the partnership thing. Just bear in mind that this will have an effect on, or I guess is the effect that we have seen play out with I forget the name of the organization that was putting on the Smash Brothers Melee contest a couple weeks ago. That Nintendo put out the cease and desist. It's something like that. Big House might be right. That they were using a obviously pirated and modded version of the game, and Nintendo was like, you can't do that, and we can't be involved in it. So I think that partnership is a big part of that. If you're going to do something with Nintendo's products, they're going to want to be involved. They're going to want to be your partner in it. And if they can't do that because you're using an illegal version of their game, they're going to shut it down.
Yeah. For my part, I feel like it's like focused on 2 areas really. Like one, to me, the fact that they're coming out with this, but it's also like so vague, is, to me, it feels like they're trying to get ahead of something. And I don't mean like, some like story is going to drop on the New York Times or something like that. I mean that I think it feels to me like they're trying to get ahead of any like government regulation, kind of like the games industry did with the ESRB, like the ratings board. They're trying to say like, hey, you don't need to police us. Like, we are policing ourselves. Like, we're doing just fine. Like, just leave us alone. And then I wonder, this is more just speculation. Like, we've seen cross-platform play become more routine. Like, more and more games are supporting it, but Sony's usually left out of the equation. It's a lot of times like PC and Xbox and Nintendo, and then Sony's doing its own thing. And I wonder if like with this collaboration, we will maybe see more full cross-platform play, even though it doesn't really fit into the 3 areas of focus. But Sony is kind of like, in the past kind of said like, oh, well, we have our own like controls and that sort of stuff, and that's part of the reason why we don't do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of those prevention, partnership, and responsibility are all like ways of directing and limiting liability. Because they're providing these platforms for people to interact with each other, which means someone is going to start taking advantage of it and being a dirtbag in one way or another. And if they have like a unified tool or a unified process that they can like refer back to, it sort of limits their liability. Maybe they can even start insuring against it if they get sued for that kind of thing. So like it would make sense for me that then they would have more opportunities for people to interact across platforms, or even in like the real world when we're back up to meeting in real life space. But like this is a butt saving measure, and they're protecting themselves and to a lesser extent the players, I think.
Totally. It was like 500 or maybe like 800 words of beautiful corporate speak. It said literally nothing.
Yes.
Truly marvelous. In more exciting news, Nintendo has announced the next round of NES and SNES games coming to the SNES and NES Switch Online later this week. The 4 SNES and 1 NES games are coming on December 18th. Of course, it doesn't cost anything extra if you are subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online. The games are Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble.
Huge that this game is coming out on the service here. Arguably, it's the only one even worth mentioning. We'll talk about the other 4, but like this completes the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. This is a usually pretty maligned game, but like I think because of that, not many people have played it. Like I messed around with it a little bit on my 3DS. Mark, I know you've never played it before. I'm excited to get my hands on this on the Switch and actually like try to play all the way through it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we've talked so many times before about how much we like the original Donkey Kong Country. You and I played Donkey Kong Country 2 and didn't really enjoy it all that much. But I am really curious. It's weird to have this like Donkey Kong Country game that has always like existed for so many years, but I've never played before. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to like dig into it.
Yeah.
Also coming out for the Super Nintendo is the Ignition Factor, which is an overhead perspective firefighting game. Not many of those in that genre anymore. Super Valis 4, a platforming adventure game. And then Tough Enough, a one-on-one fighting game. And then for the NES, Nightshade, which is an old school adventure game.
Then these are all like huge. Like I don't know why. Like I don't know why I add these. Like I legit don't get it. These are all gonna go for me in the like organizationally in the bottom, so I never have to look at them. Then there are obviously still big games missing from especially the Super Nintendo library, but from the NES library as well. Like there are just things that aren't in there. And you know maybe part of that is like getting like Capcom and Square Enix are both like actively selling their back catalog like in other ways, so maybe they're just not going to let them have them, and these are just the games that they still have the rights or the ability to negotiate with the rights holders or what. But like outside of Donkey Kong Country 3, these are poor weird offerings.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, like these are not games that I am interested in playing, but I just have to assume that the Ignition Factor is somebody's like cool spot or Crash Test Dummies where they're like, oh yeah, like we got this game at a garage sale and I remember putting hours into it as a kid. It's not something that like maybe holds up, but you know, is a curiosity for somebody.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be way more of those on the NES that they haven't put back out. Just because like that was the era of like just like hundreds of games that don't make any sense and that like you rented for a weekend and just became obsessed with, even though it was terrible.
I think you're like, I wonder if you like you were saying, if the rights for some of these games from the 8 and 16-bit era are so like crisscrossed and messed up that outside
Totally.
of the big developers who generally haven't shown a lot of interest, well, I mean, as far as we can tell, but you're right that they are like monetizing their back catalogs in different ways, that like maybe they are just kind of like, okay, who has anything that's available from the 16-bit era with clear rights,
Right.
that they like can show that they own it in clear documentation.
Or who has confusing enough rights that you could put it out anyway, and no one knows if they can have any right to sue you. Like,
Yeah.
it's very strange. But like the Ignition Factor, have you even heard of this game
No.
before? Like,
No.
what is? I had to watch the trailer and write little descriptions for each one of these because otherwise it'd be like, oh, the Ignition Factor, what is that? Like a driving game, probably? I don't know.
Yeah, and Super Valis 4 implies that there are 3 Super Valises before it.
At least 3 Super Valises before it.
You're right. There might be a whole like prequel trilogy, like prequel sequence that is numbered in a completely different way.
And this one is Super, for example. So like there could have been a whole regular Valis series before this.
What if Super Valis is like the Mega Man X to some unknown like Valis series?
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean maybe.
Last month, the NPD Group's report on video game sales in the United States included the interesting fact that the Nintendo Switch was the best-selling system for 23 months running through October, which was the longest streak ever. There is a new longest streak ever because this month's report confirmed that Switch was also the best-selling console in November, making it the best-selling console in the United States for 24 months, a full 2 years.
Okay. Now, Sony and Microsoft released new hardware in November.
Yeah, and PlayStation 5 had the best console launch month ever in both units sold and dollars spent. So it did great. It's not like the PlayStation 5 did poorly. The PlayStation 5 sold, and the Xboxes as well. Like, they sold everything that was available to sell, but the Switch just sold more.
It was just selling better.
Yeah.
There is a like hidden component to Nintendo's success this generation, and I guess with all generations, that I don't know. We're never gonna get like a full picture of it. But like every month, or whenever we talk about NPD numbers, NPD reports, and Nintendo games are charting on there, we're never surprised to see them. But there's always with the caveat of digital sales are not included on the list.
That's right.
So like however amazingly well Nintendo games appear to be selling, they're selling even better than that. Possibly by a factor of like, it could be like 100% more being sold digitally than physically. It's not unreasonable to think. So I mean, I don't. There's Switch and Nintendo are doing quite well.
Yeah, I feel like Nintendo has a tendency to their success is either like feast or famine. Like rarely do they just hit like a solid triple, or like I guess you could say the 3DS was that. But for or like the Game Boy, but like the Game Boy Advance sold incredibly well. Like I feel like they either do incredibly well or they do incredibly poorly, and it's like those peaks and valleys are just like nuts because they can last for years.
Yeah, well, and like the seemingly unrelated to obviously Animal Crossing was a huge success and sold a lot of consoles for them this year. But like that's it. That was the only console driver they had this year.
Yeah.
And they had, they continued their streak even through the launch of new consoles. So like, they're doing great. They're on fire right now, and one slow year wasn't enough to dethrone them.
Yeah, I mean, listeners, I hope chill didn't just run down your spine as you contemplated what this show might look like if we went through Wii U years again.
Look, man, we can do it. You and I can dig into the back catalog and be like, look, we're doing a long play of. I think we should do an episode just about Donkey Kong Country 3. I think we should play it.
Yeah,
I think
that'd
we
be
should
fun.
talk about it as though we're a new game. I think that'll be fun. I think we could do that. We can bring back the Donkey Kong 3 contest, see who can score higher. There are no depths I won't go to for this show. We can play old games all day. Don't make us do Wii music again. We'll do it.
Finally, as part of Mario's 35th anniversary, Nintendo announced an all-new worldwide Splatoon 2 Splatfest for January 2021. This was back in like August at the Mario 35th Direct. The Splatfest is going to be which Mario power-up would you prefer? Supersize from a Super Mushroom or Invincibility from a Superstar. We now have exact dates for this Splatfest. It's going to be starting January 15th at 2 p.m. Pacific time, running through January 17th, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Work that out for your local time zone because it's a worldwide Splatfest, so everybody's participating at the same time.
Cool. That's cool. Do you feels like a weird pairing, right? Or a weird match off between the Super Mushroom and the Superstar.
I guess it's like which power up would you prefer? Like if you had the you had one of these powers, which one would you want?
So are we to trust like the scale of Super Mario Brothers that like when you get a mushroom you grow to literally double the height that you are normally?
Feels inconvenient.
I don't want to be 12 feet tall.
No.
I don't want to be 12 feet tall.
Riding roller coasters would be right out.
Yeah, couldn't do it. Although if you were, look, I just watched Big last week because it's on Disney Plus, and if Josh Baskin just had access to a Super Mushroom, he could have gone on that ride and spared himself, some really weird situations working for that toy company.
Well, I guess we know which side Josh Baskin is going to be choosing.
Yeah, he'll go for the mushroom. No, but I'm for real though. Which one of these? We always say, oh, it'd be fun to go back for. We're not going to go back. But which one of these? Which team are you on?
honestly, I feel both would be a little bit of a curse. Super Mushroom, you're too big. Invincibility from a superstar, great, but like difficult to go see a movie when that'll be possible again because you're like glowing, flashing all the time. Plus, like the music, it would get a little old.
Well, I guess the question is, do you have to activate it right away? Because a star only lasts for a little bit, right? You get like 7 seconds of invincibility.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess like it doesn't say, so we can interpret the rules however we want. In which case, I would do a superstar, and I would like keep it in reserve for a moment when I like really needed super strength or invincibility. I guess.
I mean, but I've played enough RPGs to know that you never end up using those items.
You never
just
do.
Make it to the end of the game.
And also, when you need it, it would be so like split second that would you have time to fumble with your invincibility star and like activate it?
And would it even occur to you? You'd be in like a bank robbery situation, and you'd be like, "Oh God, what do I do?" And then like you reach into your pockets eventually, and you're like trying to find it, and someone's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then they shoot you, and that's the end of you. Don't be a hero.
I guess that's
all right.
The moral of the story.
All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. I'm sorry to summon that bank robbery and getting shot imagery right at the end of this fun-friendly episode. That was bad of me. I apologize. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter, or wherever you share stuff. We appreciate it when you do. Helps other people find us. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. Don't forget to find a way to rent Mortal Kombat and watch it so you can hang out and talk about it next week with us. It'll be fun. We have a Facebook page. Did I already say this? Facebook page is Nintendo Cartridge Society. I threw myself for a loop by adding something that's not normally part of this. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying, don't be a hero, and thank you for listening.
My name is Will Himes, and I am a ghostwriter, meaning I write other people's books for them. And I have a podcast called I Will Write Your Book, which are recordings of my meetings with my eccentric clients, such as a woman blocked after one sentence of a children's book about her dogs, a romance novelist who dislikes sex, and a man proud of having sampled everything in his local grocery store. This podcast has been described as fully improvised, played by some of the best comedians on the planet Earth. Hey, that's pretty good. That's I Will Write Your Book on Campfire Media.
Campfire.